This area was kind of like a bar reception. Then we had one barber station here, and then manicure, pedicures in the back.
Oh, cool.
And this is where we did our grooming services fully.
That's Isaiah Michael. I'm standing with him on the Lower East Side in New York City, and we're looking into a vacant storefront where his business used to be, the Classic Man Barbershop.
For us, it's like we're offering this great experience where you kind of go there not just for the haircut, but because people go there to hang out and kind of engage.
We met Isaiah through Abigail Ellman, an urban planner with a tenants' rights organization called the Cooper Square Committee. Abigail was showing me all the vacancies in the neighborhood. Isaiah's barbershop was the first stop.
You were paying like 3 times as much as your previous tenant.
Yeah, $8,500 a month.
Whoa.
600 square feet.
That's a ton.
Yeah. It's not so much for $8,500. If we were paying $8,500 and the water worked and the electrical was fine, and there wasn't a construction project outside the space every single day, then we would have been fine. We kind of reached a point where it's like, all right, we're not running a business at this point. We're arguing with the landlord.
Abigail took me around to see some more of the vacancies in the area.
This was like a vintage shop. They were doing a lot of stuff online anyway.
In 2018, Abigail participated in a storefront survey with the East Village Community Coalition to track all the vacancies happening on the Lower East Side.
Avenue B, which we're on right now, had 19%, 1 in 5 vacancies.
Through the survey, Abigail discovered why so many businesses have had to close. And the reasons varied, from landlords to online competitors to rents.
This used to be a fruit and vegetable store. I went in there before they closed, and I asked the owner, if he was having any issues. And he was like, yeah, well, my lease is up. My landlord wants to double my rent. So it really was just the rent that killed him. Anyway, that was about a year ago, and it's been vacant since.
It's been vacant a year?
Yeah. But the incentives are all messed up because he's not collecting any rent on this space for the time being. And this was something that people really needed.
Abigail also helps businesses that are struggling to stay open, providing everything from legal counsel to business advice. She took me to Gem Spa, a local institution that has been serving egg creams, a New York City staple, for almost 100 years.
Thank you for stopping in.
Absolutely.
So what flavor egg cream can I get you?
That's Parul Patel, who took over Gem Spa from her father. Abigail's here a lot to help Parul keep it open.
We're facing challenges we've never faced before. It's a daily trauma. Worst case scenario, I may end up having to do GoFundMe. It's not even about let me get rich so I can go buy a mansion. No, it's not that. Right now we're in survival mode.
Yeah.
It's just a battleground. Every day different bullets are being thrown at me from the landlord, from suppliers, from customers. Okay, $5.
Thank you.
If we don't do something, we are going to be left without these really intangible, important parts of our cities. And I think it's about deciding what we want our city to be.
As Abigail said, when it comes to retail, we need a vision for what we want our cities to be.
Because right now, we've created a system that means ground floors are vulnerable. Places that serve daily needs, that act as community hangouts, that are local institutions.
And that doesn't just hurt the store owners. These vacancies, they impact the vibrancy and community of a city itself.
Welcome to City of the Future, a podcast from Sidewalk Labs.
Each episode, we explore ideas and innovations that could transform our cities.
We are your hosts. I'm Eric Jaffe.
And I'm Vanessa Quirk.
And in this episode, we're talking about an idea that could help retailers and community members thrive and create more active street life in the process.
Stoa.
It's not just small businesses that are suffering. The big guys are failing too. Retail chains like Sears and Toys R Us have gone bankrupt over the past few years.
Just last month, Barney's announced that it was filing for bankruptcy after 100 years in business.
And it's not just New York, or even in the US. It's global.
I'm in London and my street is a big shopping street and it's got about 7 or 8 vacancies in about 200 yards of prime space. So it's definitely affecting everybody.
That's Mark Pilkington, author of a new book, Retail Therapy, Why the Retail Industry is Broken and What Can Be Done to Fix It.
Shouldn't the subtitle be How to Compete with Amazon?
Well, according to Mark, most people assume that is the root of the problem. But there is a lot more to the crisis than just e-commerce.
Retailing is a very, very, very difficult business model. It's a very high fixed cost business model. You've got your stores, you've got your rent, you've got your people, you've got your stock, all sitting there. And if you don't do a certain level of turnover, it's going to start killing you very, very, very quickly. You only have to lose 10 or 15% of the sales in most stores, and they become unprofitable. If one just thinks of it as being e-commerce, then one misses a lot of the sort of richness of the causes, and then you don't necessarily come up with the right solutions.
So Mark is saying there are other factors for this 10 to 15% decline in sales.
Yeah, and to give you an example, so millennials aren't shopping. Perhaps more than any other demographic, they just haven't recovered from the impact of the Great Recession. And that's been a huge hit for the retail sector.
Younger people are the people who historically went and shopped, The problem is that income is so badly distributed between older people and younger people now. In the United States, only 15% of the wealth is owned by people under 45. I mean, older people have always been relatively wealthier, but that is a very striking statistic. You've got a young consumer that wants to have nice things, but really can't afford it.
Another main character in the story is private equity. By 2017, about half of the top 200 retailers in the U.S. were private equity owned. In other words, venture capital firms were swooping in and buying big stores.
What they like to do is they go into businesses that are reasonably stable and grow them very, very fast, and then they want to exit them and sell them for a multiple of what they bought them for. It tends to be quite short-termist because they want to get the results quickly, and it's got this emphasis on debt. Now, when you combine that with retail as it was 30 or 40 years ago, that's fine. But with retail as it is now, where it's going through massive disruption and it's got these big long-term challenges, it's a marriage made in hell. The crisis has now moved from the retailers to the landlords, because the landlord's business model was to borrow money long-term against these very regular, very reliable 5 to 10 year leases, and the income was pretty sure, And with all the retailers going bust, they can't fill the spaces. So the problem's now moved one stage back to the retail landlords.
So that's why you can walk down a street in one of the most popular neighborhoods of New York and see only chains or vacant stores. Landlords are waiting for another stable, reliable chain to sign a long-term lease.
That said, some smaller players are actually succeeding in this new retail landscape. Direct-to-consumer companies like Warby Parker, Everlane, Bonobos, they can get products to people much, much cheaper by cutting out the middlemen. In fact, a lot of these online shops have been so successful, they're opening up stores now.
So it's a reverse move from online back to brick and mortar.
Not quite. It's brick and click.
The stores are much smaller, in very high traffic, cool locations, but they don't have a lot of stock in the store. Really, they're using the stores as customer recruitment points.
Brick and click stores are all about the shopping experience.
If you see yourself essentially as a seller of goods, then people can get goods more cheaply on the internet any day of the week. But what you can't get on the internet yet is that experience. I think people still want to have engaging experiences and go out and meet other people.
So, what do you think the future of retail will feel like?
It's going to be all about entertainment, basically. It's going to become kind of quite theatrical.
Retail that's quite theatrical. What does that even mean?
Well, I literally just booked us tickets to something, and it might just explain what Mark's talking about here. It's an immersive retail theater experience.
Okay, I'm a little nervous right now, not gonna lie.
I don't know what we're in for.
All right, let's go.
Hello, you're here for the House of Snowfields.
Yes.
That is your ticket into the experience.
Is this an art installation? Oh, it's just pillows. I'm in the pillows. I'm in a bed of pillows.
Oh, all right. Each room has a different theme and a different installation, a different setup, and a different set of merchandise.
Shoes. Oh, this is my size.
Are you here for the experience?
I guess so. Is there something else to be here for?
Come on back.
Okay, so the bookshelf is a door. We're going through.
This is the next part.
Behind closed doors here. Oh, I get to slide down.
Oh, yeah.
No. Okay, I'm in the slide. I'm coming. Jesus Christ.
That was faster than I anticipated.
Okay, here I go. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, I didn't know I was sliding today. That was great.
Hello, I'm Dr. Genevieve Ayala Somayajula.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
So we're in the Nuria space.
The forest.
The forest, sorry.
And like every good forest, there's a slide with people coming down.
What did you expect when you walked into immersive theater retail?
Okay. That was an experience.
So what do we do next?
I heard there was a snack.
Yes. Come with me. Now, did all of you remember to take your multivitamin this morning? No.
Every day.
Every day you forget or you remember?
I forget.
That's what I thought. Now, with this new vitamin called Gem, you will never forget. Do you know why? Because inside of this vitamin, we have all kinds of incredible nutrients, including B12, B5, B6, omega-3, iron, and biotin, which is amazing for your hair and your nails.
That's true.
Now, give it a taste and tell me what you think.
You're yummy.
This is great. Wow. Okay.
Okay, now we're walking into Ethos.
This is Ethos.
Welcome.
Hi.
I am B. I'm the wellness expert, and this is my ethos. I like to start with some CBD healing balm. Okay, just rub
Can I
that
go
into
anywhere?
the temples,
Oh,
the
the
neck,
temples.
the shoulder.
Oh, it smells really nice,
The chakras, if you know where those are. If you do, please tell me. I actually studied musical theater and just pretending to be a wellness expert, but don't record that.
Well, I feel better already, so
Good. The things I Googled are working wonderful.
That cream was not messing around. It is strong. Woo! Woo!
I bathe in it sometimes.
I'm not kidding. That CBD stuff is still tingling on my face. Woo.
I'm still processing that whole experience.
At least the tingling has stopped on my face.
That's good. I mean, okay, all of those products that we walked through, they're real items you can go back and buy online.
I already looked up some of those cute cheese that I saw there.
Did you buy them?
No. I might later, but that's besides the point. I had a fun theatrical experience. So retail can be more than just buying things.
Okay, I mean, I had fun too, but is that really enough to solve the retail crisis?
Experiential retail is really one piece of the puzzle, but it's not everything, and it doesn't solve the issue that we have at hand of vacant storefronts. And so we actually have to step back and think more holistically about the role of the store and the store on the street and how it contributes to our everyday life to start to tackle that challenge.
That's Carrie Denning-Jackson. She works on retail innovation at Sidewalk Labs.
Retail, just the word itself, like it tends to connote more just shopping for people. And your street life is actually about way more than that. Like if you think about it, what do you do on the street? You're interacting with friends. You may be going to the grocery store to buy something, but maybe you're going to the hairdresser. Maybe you're going to get a haircut. You're going to lift weights. You're going to the gym. You're dropping your kid off at daycare. You're getting your teeth cleaned. There's a lot that happens on the ground floor that's more than just retail. And so when you leave your house, there is this bustle, there's something going on, and this sense of like neighborhood connections that can happen.
To achieve this vision of a bustling community, Carrie looked to a city of the past for inspiration: Athens.
In ancient Greece, the Greek agoras were not just markets where vendors would come to sell their wares, but places where citizens would come together to talk politics, art, and culture.
And surrounding those agoras were covered walkways which helped people gather, rain or shine. The Greeks called them Stoa.
Carrie and her team at Sidewalk have developed a Stoa for the 21st century. This Stoa wouldn't just create vibrancy on the ground floor of cities, it would also start to address some of the challenges facing tenants, challenges that lead to retail vacancies.
So what we imagine with Stoa, I think unlike the ancient Greeks, is that it's almost like having a warehouse on your ground floor. Imagine very high ceilings, large spaces about 40 feet by 40 feet with few columns in between. So you can just do a ton. It's the type of space where you can have your Cineplex, you can have your grocery store, you can have your small barbershop, you can have a restaurant. It really has a whole range of uses.
The great thing about Stoa is you can have true mixed use. You can have not just stores, but offices, schools, community spaces, and they're all working in concert to create a vibrant ground floor.
And Stoa is adaptable enough to handle whatever uses a neighborhood might need.
We don't quite know what's happening with the future of retail or food and beverage. A lot is changing. And so our view is that the Stoa allows us to be flexible and adaptive over time.
Critically, this system would also have a strong exterior shell, which also means you can be way more flexible with the interior.
We can even move the walls.
This one is actually on a track, so it rolls.
That's Carrie's teammate, Mark Bauernhuber, an architect. I went up to Toronto so Mark could show me some of the flexible wall prototypes they've been working on.
You could actually pull these apart, and what you get here is a glimpse of the interlocking mechanisms.
They kind of look like a door latch to your house, you know? Oh, it turns.
Yeah, so just turn that little red key, and you can interlock that to this next panel, and then all four of them move together.
All right. Ooh.
So now they're one, and even with just that one clamp, they're all moving now together. Yeah. You can move 16 or 20-foot wall with one hand, and it almost effortlessly glides across this larger opening that we have here. So in that sense, it also sort of demonstrates things can be big, but also easy to maneuver and really nimble within the larger space.
The key to this flexibility is actually the utilities. Usually all these wires are embedded inside a wall, which means you have to demolish it to move it.
But if you embed the utilities in the baseboard, you can renovate a space in half the time.
You don't have to have a conduit running through the wall, so it is much faster to do renovations. You don't need to bring in an electrician. You don't have to worry about piping or gas. You can just take the wall down, bring it back up, and it can take a couple days as opposed to weeks.
So you can have different kinds of spaces constantly popping up or down.
Or a store could convert their space at night for events and music. I mean, anything really.
This flexibility also means a ground floor can help new businesses grow over time.
Flexibility is key because you want these businesses to start small and then you want them to expand into the space next door. That should be built in.
That's Sarah Philly, a social entrepreneur focused on community development. For Sarah, flexibility isn't just about physical space. It's also about lowering the barriers to entry for a diverse mix of retailers.
In 2011, Sarah co-founded America's first retail incubator called Pop-Up Hood. It started in Oakland, California, a city hit hard by the recession.
There was just a handful, like maybe 3 or 4 retail entities down there. And when Sears closed, that was really the nail in the coffin for retail in downtown Oakland. And so as citizens, we really saw an opportunity to take the ethos and the startup culture of this Bay Area and apply it to civic innovation.
So Sarah and her team approached landlords with vacant properties around the neighborhood and asked them to make a deal. Pop-Up Hood would chip in money to help the owner upgrade their space. And they would take on all the marketing to drive people to these stores. And in exchange, the landlord had to do one crucial thing: rent their space for 6 months for free.
Did it work?
Well, I went to Oakland to find out.
So this is Old Oakland.
Okay.
And you can see the architecture totally changes to this beautiful, like, old Victorian style.
Right. Chase, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Chase Clark. I own The Black Squirrel. It's a yarn and fabric shop in Berkeley, and I'm opening a second one in Oakland that's going to be only yarn, hand-dyed stuff. I was priced out of all my neighborhoods. I looked at rents, and they wanted triple net, so $10,000 a month. And I'm like, as a small retail business, I cannot afford to pay that at all. So I almost thought my dream was dead. Right. And then I met Sarah from Pop-Up Hood, and she connected me with the space in Berkeley that I'm in now, and it's just been amazing.
Amazing.
It was like a godsend because I couldn't get a business loan. I couldn't find a space, and it just lowered all the barriers to the point where I could just open my shop. And now it's this wonderful thing that's been going for like 3 years. We have a weekly group. It's called Stitch and Bitch.
Cool.
And I started in Oakland when I moved here like 10 years ago. We've had to move multiple times because the cafes that we frequent would close.
Oh my gosh.
And we'd have to move on. At my shop, we have it on Thursday nights.
It's a cool street market. We just stumbled into a street market. This is neat. And these shops around are also like kind of just retail shops along either side of here?
There's galleries, retail shops, restaurants, coffee shops, and there's upper offices too. So it's a really great mix of everything.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people here.
Tons of people. Down here is really cool, and I feel like Sarah really had a hand in just making it better.
Yeah.
She just started with those few little retail spaces, fun little pop-ups, and then everything else happened organically. The restaurants happened organically, and just the people came on their own after that. And that's what's magic about it.
That sounds great. I'd love to know how replicable it is. I mean, were there lessons from Oakland that other cities can learn?
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah is actually working with other cities now, not only helping them to better support tenants, but to make sure that the tenants, the landlords, and the city, they're all working towards the same goal. But she also pointed out that it's not always easy.
For example, one of the hurdles that we have is like when a business wants to do something out of the ordinary, and a cat cafe is a great example of that.
Okay, is this from personal experience?
Yes, we did one in Berkeley, and we were the first ones. And what was brilliant about it is that it had a social mission to increase cat adoptions. But that was a little bit of a hurdle to get some permitting allowance. And there are brilliant new retail concepts that are going to be coming down the pike, so to speak, but you can only be as innovative as the person sitting at the desk in the municipality who's going to approve your business, you know? The best possible outcome would be that there's the nurturing at the very small micro level all the way to the planning office. Businesses don't just move into a shop and it's over. They need continuous marketing support, economic development support. They need technical tools to grow. A thriving business ecosystem is fairly fragile.
So how do we support that fragile ecosystem? Well, Carrie and the retail team at Sidewalk believe it should be built into a neighborhood from the beginning.
That's why the Stoa concept goes beyond flexible physical spaces. It encompasses a whole host of innovations that can allow tenants to thrive and grow.
And for Carrie, that includes flexible leases.
Often a brand or a retailer or whoever, like they're testing their concept. They don't know if it's going to work. They're testing. It's like testing a new recipe. And so we want to enable that, offering options for tenants for 1 month to 6 months to a year to more, and have lease terms that are really as tailored to them as possible.
Another way tenants could be supported is through sharing space. This idea is called co-tenancy.
Can there be a way for two different merchandisers to actually be in the same space and split their rent? That's pretty challenging, but it can be done. We've seen that with coffee shops and bars kind of sharing the same space at different hours.
So imagine I'm a tenant in your city of the future. What are some of the ways that it would be easier for me to go ahead and set up shop?
Great. So I'm going to just, for argument's sake, say you are a daycare provider. We'd want to know exactly what you need and then go through the process. So there'd be, some permitting support you'd get, some construction and design support. So you plug in, like, this is what I need. I need a space with not a lot in it, but open, no columns, don't want kids running into columns. You want it pretty wide and open.
Big space to set up my playground.
Yeah, you need lockers. And you put in all of that information and you say, I'm generally open in the middle of the day. Meanwhile, say I own a yoga studio. Turns out I have pretty similar needs. I don't want columns in my space. I need lockers, but I'm open in the morning and I'm open in the evenings. And so you could have some sort of tool that matches you guys. And you could, split rent potentially. It's our goal to weed away all the stuff that a tenant doesn't want to deal with and the stuff that's challenging, whether that's permitting or getting locked into a 10-year lease when they don't want to and it's too risky. We want to get rid of all of that.
To help manage Stoa, Sidewalk is developing a technology platform called Seed Space.
The Seed Space concept is such that, you're kind of guided and walk through the whole process. We want to make this as user-friendly and easy for the tenant as possible.
Seed Space could bring the kind of metrics that e-commerce platforms have into the physical world, not only to help match tenants, but to gauge what's working on the ground floor.
There are plenty of places where they're not necessarily driving huge amounts of sales, but they're an unbelievable asset to the community. Bookstores might be one of those places where, tons of people are coming, but they're not necessarily purchasing a book every time. They're just sitting and hanging out. And so is there a way you can get a sense of the foot traffic they drive to the neighborhood and provide them maybe a tenant credit back on their rent because they're bringing so many people that are then going to the coffee shop, going to the juice shop and spending and, attracting people to the neighborhood. So it's a really interesting way to think about the role of each store
That is a really interesting idea. I mean, I know that San Francisco, they do something similar in that the city actually subsidizes the rent of legacy businesses that have, been around for years. And I could imagine taking that idea even further. Like, could you give credits or subsidies to some of the tenants that face even more challenges than bookstores? And I'm thinking like community spaces or arts programming, tenants that would definitely add vibrancy and value to the neighborhood.
Right, because if Stoa works, it should show landlords that when there's vibrancy on the street, in the long term, that's also better for their bottom line.
Yeah, you have to be able to prove that a great neighborhood means great economic outcomes. I think that's, one of our jobs to do is to really make that overt, that fantastic quality of life does lead to great economic outcomes. A reason I got into doing this work when I was in college and then business school was because I was frustrated as somebody in their 20s that there's nowhere to spend time on the weekends besides a bar.
Yeah.
And I would have liked a space where, I could have spent time with friends but also do things that I enjoy, which was, creative things like making art.
Yeah.
So, and those spaces don't exist. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to make this place that's vibrant, dynamic, that has arts and culture and like all the things that we think drive a great place.
Ultimately, addressing the vacancy challenge requires bringing together so many different elements.
It means providing a flexible physical space that allows for a wide mix of uses.
Supporting tenants who want to experiment, to pop up for a season or try something new.
Bringing tenants together for community events or to share space throughout the day.
It also means giving a more permanent home to those community anchors that make a neighborhood great.
And by doing all these things, you can actually activate a neighborhood, not just from 9 to 5, but for 12, 14, even 18 hours a day, and throughout the year.
And then you create that street life, that unique interaction of people and place that makes a city feel alive.
Thank you for listening to City of the Future, a podcast from Sidewalk Labs. Your hosts are Vanessa Quirk and me, Eric Jaffe. We are produced by Benjamin Walker and Andrew Calloway.
Mix is by Zach McNeese. Special thanks to Abigail Ellman, Isaiah Michael, Parul Patel, Mark Pilkington, Carrie Jackson, Mark Bauernhuber, Sarah Philly, Chase Clark, and Regina Evans.
Art is by the great Tim Cow. Our music is composed by Adam James Levine Arity. If you want to hear more of Adam's work, you can check out his band, Lost Amsterdam, at amsterdamlost.com.
To learn more about Sidewalk Labs, visit our website at sidewalklabs.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter at the bottom of the page.
See you in the future.
Bye.